Welcome to Nightmare County. I'm your host, Rando M. Gould. Today was a very special day. Today was World Dracula Day. Today, on May 26, 1897, Bram Stokers Dracula was released. A book that would influence, I believe, Gothic literature to a whole new degree. Especially for vampires. It can't be denied how important Dracula is for vampires. And I'll never forget the first time that I ever read Dracula. I was around 10 years old, and I had went to Walmart with my family, and Walmart used to sell these books that were 2 for 1, so they're 50 cents a piece. And there was Frankenstein, Dracula, Journey to the Center of the Earth, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, The Invisible Man, Jungle Book, so on and so forth. And I had a job. I started working when I was around 9 years old, cleaning up churches and doing little odd-end jobs and stuff. And so I had money every month to spend. And I'll never forget going in. I used to buy stuff based on how cool the cover looked. That went from albums to movies. So I got burned a lot by buying something because it had a cool cover. Molly Hatchet. Because they always had awesome album covers, and I was expecting something like Black Sabbath or Kiss or Iron Maiden, and I was severely disappointed when Swamp Rock would come on. It'd be years before I appreciated Molly Hatchet, but at the time I was like, this sucked. But same thing with books. It happened to me all the time with books and movies, because you know how there was always awesome box art for horror movies, and then when you get home and you start to watch it, it'd be the lamest thing you'd ever seen. That being said, that was part of the fun though. So yeah, I bought Dracula, Frankenstein, Journey to the Center of the Earth, and Invisible Man were the first few books that I had bought. I ended up going back and buying a lot more later on down the road. And you have to understand, I had seen Dracula with Bela Lugosi before I'd ever read Dracula itself, so I would quickly find out that the film version of books are incredibly different, and the novelization is so much usually better, pretty much always better. But I still love Dracula, Bela Lugosi, and all the other interpretations as well. I mean, it's guaranteed that Francis Ford Coppola's version is probably the most worthy or the most faithful to the Dracula novel, but I still prefer Bela Lugosi, I'm not going to lie. But I still prefer the book over almost any other vampire book that I've ever read. And I've read a lot of great books, great novels about vampires, but Bram Stokers Dracula still is the pinnacle for me over everything else. Probably followed by Anne Rice's Lestat, Interview with Vampire, or Vampire Chronicles and stuff. But at first I didn't understand what I was trying to read at 10 years old reading Dracula, because I was expecting the movie, and it took me a few tries, but eventually I got into Dracula, and I probably read it within 3 or 4 days. And I was an avid reader when I was a kid, more so than I am now, and I need to get back into that. But I was an avid reader as a kid, because our school used to have accelerator reader. I don't know if y'all had that, but we did, and it made kids want to read books to get extra points, because if you read so many points by the end of the school year, you got to go do something really awesome that took you on a field trip. So there was this incentive to read and get all these points. And I used to read a lot of books. I read everything from The Hobbit, the Lord of the Rings saga, the trilogy, and then not the movies, the books. I even read Moby Dick, and I'm gonna tell you, I didn't read all of Moby Dick. I might have read 3/4 of it, and I probably need to go back and try to read that. But anyways, I just read as much as I could so I could, get a lot of points on the Accelerator reader test, because Moby Dick being such a big book, I think it was like 35 points, which was a big deal. Most books were only around, depending on the size of the novel and the grade level, was like 15 to 30. Most of them, they're like 3 points, 4 points, 5 points, so on and so forth. But Dracula, I didn't read for Accelerator reader points. I read it because I was into horror movies, especially the Universal Classic movies that I'd seen at the time, and that's the reason why I read the book, and I finally got into it. Now, at first, I didn't understand all the innuendos that are in the book. That'd be years before, when I read it again, that I would, get a full understanding over everything that was in the novel. But it's a book that I continue to go back and read probably every few years. I don't read it every year, but I do read it every few years, and I still enjoy it. I mean, I pretty much know how it's going to play out every time, but it says something to read a book when you know how it's going to end, but you still read it, and in your mind tries to play this trick on you to where it makes you think that maybe it's going to turn out this way. And I think that's what's awesome about, novels and such. Because, movies, to me, novels do something to the brain that cause you to think that way, whereas movies, you memorize it so much. I mean, we know how we can we can say the lines before they're ever read on the screen, and we know we can pretty much mimic everything that's going to happen. When you read a novel, it's like your mind totally invests in everything that you're pulling into it by reading it, and you still think that maybe it's going to play out somewhat different, even though it's not. But and Dracula always did that for me and everything. And and I want to talk a little bit about this, because without Dracula the novel, we wouldn't have the movies, and we probably wouldn't even have Universal Studios, which put out, I'm sorry, I'm stuttering, all these great Universal Classic movies that we have today. And then without that, you wouldn't have anything that influenced everything else that came out. You wouldn't have Nosferatu, which is right over there. You wouldn't have the toys. You wouldn't have the action figures. You wouldn't have the music. Because, I mean, think about how heavy Dracula and the Gothic novel itself influenced music. I know there's a hell of a lot of bands and music genres that have been influenced from Dracula himself. So, I mean, it's incredibly important. So, that being said, this is all I really wanted to go over. I want to tell you my little story about how I started reading Dracula, and how much I appreciate it for, Bram Stoker even writing it, because, like I said, it is important. And it is something everyone should at least try to read. It's a great novel. Obviously it's more accessible and easier to read than Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, because Mary Shelley's Frankenstein is pretty much, as much as I like that, it's such a different format and different way of writing. Both great. I always felt like Dracula was more gothic, whereas Frankenstein, even though steampunk didn't exist at the time, it has that that flavor to it, I guess. Now, I guess maybe because I've been influenced by steampunk and all these other subgenres. But yeah, I mean, they're both great gothic novels, but I always preferred Dracula over everything else. But yeah, this is all I want to talk about. I hope you had a happy World Dracula Day, and I hope you've enjoyed the novels. I hope you enjoy watching all the Dracula movies that have been released, and all the vampire movies that have been influenced due to Dracula that have been put out. So yeah, I want to say thank you. If you like the video, hit the like button, subscribe, because I'd appreciate it. And you can always find me on Instagram and Facebook under Nightmare County. That being said, don't be a stranger and tune in.